Hello, my name is Susan Hester. I am a pediatric intensive care nurse down at Eggleston in Atlanta, and I am going to be doing my presentation for our class today on incorporating educational gaming in the clinical setting as well as in the educational setting. One of the big challenges today for nurse educators is a way to make your classroom environment engaging, interesting, and captivating for your learners. A traditional didactic or lecture approach is seen by many as very boring, very static. And one innovative ideas that we can use for a learning strategy would be to incorporate educational gaming into our educational format. In a recent study by Rao and Spiegovel, educational gaming was associated with strengthening learning outcomes, and used with traditional forms of teaching, games kept students from becoming bored, it generated enthusiasm, and it stimulated thought and critical thinking. So let's look at some of the different types of games that we as educators might use to teach learners. And I use the term learners generically because our audience may be different depending on the type of education we're imparting. For example, if your educational role is for patient education, you may be teaching children or adults about healthcare issues. Or if you're a member of nursing faculty, you would be teaching student nurses. Another educational role is as a clinical expert where you are educating graduate nurses in the workplace. And each of these examples requires a different approach to educational gaming. For instance, recently I developed a presentation with an audio-visual segment followed by an educational game for pediatric patients with new onset diabetes. Since the population being educated is school-aged children, it was important to utilize methods that would engage their attention and in turn really hold that interest. So gaming seemed to fit perfectly for this population. In Teaching Strategies for Nurse Educators, DeYoung states that changing teaching activities every 15 to 20 minutes helps individuals retain information and stave off boredom. And this is especially true with pediatrics who traditionally have very limited attention spans, and I'm sure every mom listening to this is aware of that. The game that I developed began with everyone sitting in a circle, and the equipment utilized during the game were a spinning wheel with a selection arrow and color-coded injection information cards. We had an educational insulin injection doll and an insulin pen filled with saline and a traditional insulin syringe filled with saline also. The sequence of the game starts with choosing a player to spin the insulin wheel of fortune, and when the wheel stops, the arrow will point to a color which will determine the site of injection. The injection dosage and the method of administration, pen or syringe, were indicated, and patients would then demonstrate their understanding of insulin administration by correctly injecting the educational doll with, in the correct body part with the indicated dosage and using the correct technique. And patients displaying mastery of the skill received age-appropriate prizes. So not only did this game help reinforce information learned in the audio-visual presentation, but it also helped evaluate whether further teaching may have been needed with a specific individual or the group as a whole. The second example of educational gaming that I wanted to talk about is a very innovative game for nursing faculty to do with undergraduate nursing students. I came across this article and I passed it on to Dr. Calmer because I was so taken by it. But it involves a game called Career Clue, and it's an assignment that nurses usually complete in their first semester, and it basically asks nursing students to research a specific nursing specialty. And they get contact information for a nurse practicing within that field of nursing as well. Students gather information from their nurse via email and share their findings with peers doing a classroom presentation. And the presenter provides clues to help classmates understand the identity of the nursing specialty. And it's a very interactive exchange of information among nurses, students, and their peers. So it makes this experience unique, fun, and educational. It is a game because students are trying to guess what that what that specific specialty might be. So not only are they learning about the specialty of their assigned nurse, but also about the nursing specialties explored by their peers. Creativity was encouraged, and many students generated wonderful ways of relaying their findings to their classmates. They used skits, songs, props, posters, and games to provide information about their nursing field. The third example of gaming in nursing education involves professional nurses in a hospital setting. My hospital, Eggleston, is in the process of applying for magnet status, and one of the ways our clinical nurse educators came up with to familiarize the staff on compliance issues was to develop a magnet scavenger hunt game. Nurses were given time off the floor to search for the answers to clues scattered throughout the hospital. This promoted teamwork as well as critical thinking with input from your peer group. The clues led us to bulletin boards, compliance, quarterly reviews, policy and procedure manuals, and the like. This type of active learning has been shown to be particularly effective for adult learners. As self-directed and self-motivated learners, adults prefer learning environments that promote active involvement and value gaming as a teaching strategy that demands their participation in solving problems. So I've given you 3 examples of educational games that I thought were very innovative ways to stimulate learning. But there are so many other types of games that a nurse educator can use in the classroom. Games such as modified board games that have been used for specific objectives such as renal system jeopardy or cardiovascular trivial pursuit. Really, the types of games are only limited by your imagination. Anything you can come up with that stimulates your students and engages them will probably work just fine. Another form of gaming would be simulation labs, which we should all be familiar with from school, work, or continuing education. A simulation lab, which is considered a form of gaming by role-playing, allows students to respond in real time to patient situations using programmable mannequins. This allows students to receive the real-world clinical experience they need to transition quickly into the fast-paced healthcare workforce. Simulation eliminates the serious risks inherent with practicing healthcare skills on live patients and gives nursing students the opportunity to learn correct interventions in a risk-free environment. Errors can be allowed to occur and play out, and this provides students with information and feedback about their individual performance and how they work with a team. Sim labs can be in a physical environment like a university or a hospital, or they can be in a virtual reality environment like Second Life. I think everyone here is familiar with Second Life, if not from this class, then from informatics. And it is used by many educational facilities, including Western Carolina University. The first time I was introduced to Second Life, I realized that maybe I should not be discouraging my children from spending hours at the computer gaming, because I had no idea that gaming was going to be incorporated in many institutional facilities as well as in the workplace. So now that we've looked at the different types of games, let's look at some of the characteristics that make up a good educational game. Prensky concluded that games have several key aspects that help make them an effective teaching modality. He says that games are fun and provide entertainment and enjoyment. We know games help us retain information and reinforce our knowledge. Games are interactive. Students have to do something. They provide outcomes and feedback to promote learning. Conflict, competition, challenge, and opposition promote critical thinking. And interactivity promotes peer bonding. Another benefit of participating in educational gaming is students have better retention of material and as a result perform better on exams. In several studies, nursing students who used gaming to review material had better exam scores than their peers in a control group.